Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I love that you're all on time. In the toy household, if you're not like 5 minutes early, you're not on time. So I really thank you for being here. I know rates are a very sensitive issue. I'm a resident myself of Orange County, and none of us want to pay increased rates on our cost of services. But I'm also an engineer and I like to be informed. And so one of the things that the team came up with that I'm really happy that we can share with you today is this idea of why we're doing what we're doing. A lot of work went into explaining in our 218 why we're proposing what we're proposing. And I feel grateful to you all that you're taking time from your busy schedule to go on essentially a 2.5, 3 hour tour to really understand the process. And then after that, you can make your own assessment about what we're doing. One of the misconceptions that I think a lot of people have about a 218 is that when there's a proposed rate increase, it's like, oh, this water district's just trying to raise their rates. And they're probably and nobody understands why, and they're probably padding the numbers, whatever reasons that they give. But this whole process is set up legally by the state of California that you really have to be, it has to be well thought out how you do it. And there's a very set way where we actually hire an independent contractor to do the rate study so that those in the district cannot be accused of cooking the books. We provide all the information to them. We share with them what we're going to build out over the next 5 years, and they put it all together and actually publish a report and make a recommendation, independent recommendation to the staff of where they think it's going to go. We in turn take a look at it ourselves and take that recommendation to our board of directors that sits there, and they make the ultimate call on where we do. Ultimately, where all this is going to lead, and you saw from the 218 study, to the April 9th hearing, where during that we'll take feedback from the public, and the board will ultimately make a decision of what we're going to do on July 1st when these rates are proposed to go in effect. So again, big ticket item here is just to thank you for being here and taking the time. I'm really grateful for my role here because I work with an incredible team here in the Yorba Linda Water District. These are 82 professionals that you see listed here. This was our employee picnic, and we said, raise our hands. Brian said, raise our hands, and we did. But the strength of any organization are its people. I've always believed that throughout my time. And you've got 82 dedicated professionals that are doing the work every day to provide you water and sewer service for our service area. Over here is our service area. And if you look at the boundaries, what that water service area doesn't show you, first off, we're located here in this peninsula here in Placentia. We're the Yorba Linda Water District, but we're in Placentia. I never understood that. But we not only serve mostly the city of Yorba Linda, but areas of Placentia, Brea, Anaheim, and unincorporated Orange County. But that's 20 square miles. And even though it's a two-dimensional rendering, what that doesn't belie, and I know many of you, depending on where you live, doesn't show you the elevation changes that exist here. We're here in the headquarters down here at about 250 feet above sea level. But there are areas in our eastern sector. Does anyone live on the east side at all? Ma'am, 1,390 if you're up in the hills. So it takes a lot to get the water from where we are located here all the way to our highest elevations. You might notice this area here in Lock Ranch that almost bifurcates our area. So we've been around since 1909, been around a long time, and I'm not sure exactly of the history, but as this area was getting ready to expand out into our eastern area, probably Mr. Locke thought he could get a better deal working with a different water agency. So although we provide sewer service for that area in Lock Ranch, it's actually served by Golden State Water, that area. Okay, so that's why it looks like it is. The other interesting part of this that people that are not from Yorba Linda don't understand is that on our northern boundary is Chino Hills State Park, right? And so because we're at a wildland urban interface with Chino Hills State Park to the north, we're susceptible to wildfires, which I know you are very familiar with that, given what happened a year ago at the Palisades in Altadena. So we're very mindful of that. We'll talk a little bit about what we've done to mitigate that threat throughout our process. But we serve a 20 square mile area, about over 80,000 people in this area that encompasses the Yorba Linda Water District. Okay, so I love this slide that was put together by my staff here because it really shows you kind of how Yorba Linda water, Yorba Linda, the city of Yorba Linda gets its water. So in the state of California, for all of us in Southern California, there are different ways of getting water. You can import it from Northern California or the Colorado River, or you can create it locally. And what makes different areas of the city different are what the ratio is of what you import and what you produce locally. And so if you look on the right side of the slide, we get all our water through a watershed that's called the Santa Ana Watershed, 2,700 square miles. Main water feature is the Santa Ana River, which is about 100 miles. It goes all the way from Big Bear and takes us all the way down and deposits around Huntington Beach and Fountain Valley. So over the winter time, which we're in right now, we rely on the snowpack and the rains that fall in that watershed to fall in that river, and it goes through these different dams, Seven Oaks Dam and Prado Dam, which are actually flood control structures run by the Army Corps of Engineers. If we didn't have those dams, the area down gradient of the dams would be flooded, which is kind of all area, our area. So if you're down by the coast, all of it would be flooded. But many of you have been on the 91 freeway and you've probably driven out east and looked to your left and seen Prado Dam. So the thing that you have to appreciate when you see Prado Dam is all our source water, all the raw water that comes to the Yorba Linda Water District flows out of that dam, a flood control dam, and flows into the Santa Ana River. And the Santa Ana River goes by the Yorba Linda Water District. We're the first water district west of Prado Dam for the source water. So everything comes out of there. I a little bit earlier told you about the percentage is the thing that differentiates from areas of how much water that you produce locally and what you import. We're very fortunate. If you live in north and central part of Orange County, you live in an area that has a groundwater aquifer, a reservoir, if you will, that's below surface that allows you to store the water. And because we have this and we're able to get 85% of our water from groundwater, you, the residents of Yorba Linda and our service area, pay a lot less for your water than those that have to rely on imported water. There are parts of Orange County, if you go into South County, that 100% of their water is imported water. That is, they have to get it from Northern California or the Colorado River. And the key figure that you have to understand with that is imported water is twice as expensive as groundwater that we generate. And so we're very fortunate. So if you're north central part of Orange County, you're very fortunate. My wife wanted to move when we first got here, and I said, no, we can't move into South County because they get imported water and we'd be paying way too much for our water. So having this groundwater basin is really great. So we're the first district and all our groundwater wells pump water out of the Santa Ana River. We have 3 that are by Santa Ana River and then 7 on our property that we might be able to show you here. And once we pump that water out, it's treated, it has PFAS. We'll talk a little bit about that later on our tour. We clean it and then we provide it to our service area. You can see the deemer plant. You probably looked up in the hills and noticed the deemer plant. That deemer plant is in charge of that imported water that's provided to our service area, not only here, but to San Diego County and other parts of South County. All flows through the deemer plant. So once the water is provided to our service area, you turn on your faucet and you use the water, it flows into the sewer system, which we manage as well. And then it's gravity fed all the way to Orange County Sanitation District in Fountain Valley, where they do wastewater treatment processes. After that, those processes are done at the wastewater treatment plant. Many of you might not have heard of Orange County Water District. They manage the aquifer, but they further treat that wastewater through a process of microfiltration, reverse osmosis, and ultraviolet light. They treat it so well that you can actually take that water and recycle it. So when it comes out after that double treatment process, first at the wastewater treatment plant, and then at Orange County Water District through its groundwater replenishment system, it's pumped all the way back up to the recharge basins. So, and you might have seen those recharge basins just south of Orange Thorpe, west of Rose Drive. You see those recharge basins there. That's water that's pumped back from Orange County Water District that's treated, that is allowed to percolate back into the area. So when you talk about recycled water, Orange County in this area has been doing this since 2008. there are different parts of Southern California that are endeavoring to do this type of recycled water. In LA County, they have a big, really expensive pure water facility that they're building in Carson that's trying to treat 150 million gallons per day. And they want to do what we've been doing here in Orange County since 2008. This facility here can treat up to 130 million gallons per day. A lot of water. So this is the picture that I want you to think about when we talk about our tour here. This is a different type of tour than the ones that we really show our infrastructure, because we're trying to show you behind the bill and what the rates are going to be able to help us do in the Yorba Linda Water District. So that's my last slide, and I think I'll turn it over to our CFO, Christine McElrevy, which will jump a little bit more into the rate study and why we're doing what we're doing. And throughout it, you can stop us anytime, and we'll answer any questions.
Good morning. I'm going to give you more of a high-level review of the rate study, but I'm happy to answer any more detailed questions that you guys have, either after this tour while we're on the bus or even after that. I can stick around after the tour if there's any detailed questions. So why do we need to do a rate study? So this is something at Yorba Linda Water District that we've done every 5 years over the last at least 10 plus years. It's actually California law that anytime we look at our rates and determine whether or not an increase is needed, we have to go through a rate study process. It's governed by Proposition 218, which was passed by California voters back in, I believe it was 1996. Which requires us to go through this process, which Mark mentioned earlier, we hired an independent consultant for. So it's a process that's been going on almost a year now. We hired the consultant about a year ago, and what they do is they go through the financial plan, they look at our costs, and then they look at our current rates and whether or not those current rates cover the costs over the next 5 years. And if they don't, then that's when we have to propose new rates. So part of California law is we're required to make sure that our rates are fair and that they cover the cost of providing water and sewer services. So what that means is we can only charge for our costs to recover those costs. Um, so that's a very important thing that is part of that proposition. We have $1.34 billion of infrastructure. So having those rates, that helps pay for that infrastructure. And that's really a large part of what those rates go towards, probably the largest part. And what that does, it helps protect our financial stability and preserving our high level of service. So to give you an example, if we were not to do a rate increase, we have different levels. We have what's called a debt service coverage ratio, because we do have debt on our books that we have to meet. If we were not to do a rate increase, we would not meet that debt service coverage ratio in a few years from now. So very important to meet that. It's a legal requirement. And then there's other things too, other target levels that we need to meet. So that's essentially why we need to do a rate study. One thing I do want to point out that you may or may not be aware of is the rate schedule. It goes over 5 years. Those are maximum proposed rates. So that's the maximum that the board can increase the rates. Every year, though, it's not an automatic increase. So every year, usually in the spring, around April or May, we take to the board, we look at our financial plan, look at the current circumstances, and we reevaluate. So we'll take to the board whether or not we recommend doing that maximum increase or even a lower increase. So what that means is if circumstances are like, say we get a lot of grant money that we weren't expecting, because we do actively pursue grants, then we could possibly recommend a lower increase. Not making any promises there, but just want to make sure you guys know that we do look at that every year. Why rate adjustments are needed. So Mark just touched on some of the infrastructure, which we'll be going into a little bit more later. But we do have aging infrastructure. Our agency is over 100 years old. So our first reservoirs, I think 2 of them, were put in 1911. So we have to maintain that infrastructure. That again is a large part of our rates. We also have rising costs of imported supplied water. As Mark said, we're really lucky that we get groundwater from the Orange County water basin. We also get imported water from Metropolitan Water District. So to give you an example, Metropolitan just came out with their budget over the next 2 years. Their proposed budget hasn't been passed yet, but and then their projections over 10 years. So their proposed budget is 9.5% increase in 2027 and 2028, so over the next 2 years, and then 9% each year after, going over a 10-year period. So that's just an example of what we're looking at there. We also have required safety and water quality regulations. So the California state requires us to test our water frequently to make sure we're providing safe and reliable water, which is a great thing. One of the things that California state has also come out with 5 years ago or so was related to PFAS. So you guys will see the PFAS treatment plant that we put in, I believe 2022 was operational, 2021, 2022. And you guys will get to see that when we go on our tour. But with that, there's costs associated with that PFAS treatment costs that we have to pay for. There's also inflation on construction, energy, and materials that we have to factor into our rate study. And along with that, we also have a policy for reserves to cover for emergencies. So what that is emergencies like fire, drought, flooding, earthquakes. We want to make sure that if any of those were to happen, which hopefully they don't, but as you know, fires do happen, that impact our facilities, we have those reserves to pay for the replacement or the repair of those. So going a little bit more into infrastructure, what the rates pay for. As I mentioned, we have $1.34 billion worth of assets. That's 56,000 individual assets. So it's an extensive network of assets that we maintain. That's more than water from the tap. That includes our reservoirs booster pump station. It includes the personnel that work 24/7 to make sure that you're able to get water every day. Whenever you turn on the tap, it's there for you, and it's safe and it's clean water. We're different than some infrastructure, like roads and bridges that you can see as you pass over a road or a bridge. You can kind of see the level of repair needed. If it's a really old bridge, you can see that it needs to be replaced or repaired. We're a little different because a lot of our infrastructure is underground. But it still ages. So it still has that condition that needs to be replaced and repaired so that we don't have expensive costs, added costs to fix it in an emergency situation. It's investing now prevents bigger costs later. So if something were to break unexpectedly, it's a lot more costly than if we plan those replacements. More costly in labor, material, because it's an emergency situation. So we want to make sure that we're planning for those aging infrastructure assets so that we don't run into expensive repairs and maintenance. And it also helps prevent unexpected outages if there's a line breaker or something like that. You always want to be able to plan for those rather than having to do them unexpectedly. Joanna's going to talk about this one.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, so Christine talked about some of our major infrastructure. We have, over the past 5 years, accomplished many great things. Infrastructure-wise, one of the biggest infrastructure pieces that you'll be seeing on the tour, it's actually the first stop, is our state-of-the-art PFAS water treatment plant. The biggest in the nation. We have a lot of people all over the world, agencies all over the world come here to see what our treatment plant is like and how we operate it. It's one of our district's most vital assets. This facility allows YLWD to reduce our reliance on imported water, which costs 2 to 3 times more than our local groundwater, saving our customers money. Another proud achievement is our investment in halihydrants to aid wildfire response and protection. Halihydrants are large tanks that are strategically placed in our service area. They can be filled with water remotely by our staff or by firefighting pilots in the event of a wildfire. Helicopters draw water from these helihydrant tanks to fight fires more efficiently. Our service area has 3 helihydrants, 2 of which are YLWD owned and 1 in partnership with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, covering our service area from the east side to the west side. It's a proven asset that has strengthened our partnerships, protected our communities, and demonstrates the district's commitment to public safety and resiliency. YLWD has also fire-hardened our water infrastructure. We have invested in emergency backup generators to stay ahead of power outages, both portable and permanent generators. We have upgraded booster pump stations in high-risk areas to have higher pumping capacity. We've cleared vegetation around district facilities like reservoirs and booster pump stations to create a defensible space. And we have built protective walls around sensitive electrical equipment. The last one listed here is the upgrade to AAA bond ratings from Fitch Ratings. Public agencies are issued bond ratings similar to personal credit scores. Almost 2 years ago, the district's bond rating was upgraded from a AA+ to AAA rating, placing it at the highest level on Fitch's rating scale, and is a testament to the district's dedication to financial responsibility and transparency, and benefits the district with low interest rates on debt financing options.
I'm not going to talk too much about this one since we'll be seeing some of these on the tour, and we'll get into more depth on them on the tour. But the overall that we want to make sure you leave here knowing is that the next 5 years, our capital projects and our capital outlay, which is basically our purchased assets like our vehicle fleet maintenance, equipment, those kinds of things, that's going to be $62 million over the 5-year period. We did what's called an asset management plan back in 2018, where an independent consultant comes out, they evaluate all of our assets, they looked at it over a 100-year period to see what we needed to replace over 100 years. And what they came up with during that report, which by the way is available on the website, executive summary of it if you guys are interested in seeing it, is that we need at least just under $13 million per year to replace those assets. And that was in 2018 dollars, which, as you know, those dollars are more now than they were in 2018. So that is a significant amount. So we're at $62 million over 5 years, which is, I believe that's about 12 per year. So we are under the amount that's in our asset management plan. So as I mentioned, that's a very, very significant investment. But we do that because of the aging infrastructure. We want to make sure that we can continue to provide reliable water to our customers. So of that amount, the majority of that is in our water projects. $41 million of that is in our water projects. $10 million is in our sewer. A lot of that is replacing sewer main lines. Nobody wants a sewer break. So we need to make sure that we're maintaining and replacing those. $11 million is in our purchased assets, which again is our vehicle fleet, our equipment, meter replacements, those kinds of things. So that gives you a big picture look at what we're looking at dollar-wise for that. And we'll go into some of these projects on our tour.
This slide is a map of the district and shows the CIP projects we have planned over the next 5 years. This map is also available in your tour packet. The locations with the buses are the stops that we will be making during our tour. We're going to kind of wrap up the presentation portion, but these are other ways to stay engaged, and there's many ways to stay engaged between now and the public hearing or throughout the whole rate process. I'm glad that you're here today because, again, you're hearing about the public hearing on April 9th, so we invite you to come to that and stay engaged with us. Another thing is tell others about the Behind the Bill tour. We have 2 more. We have one on March 10th and March 24th that we're still accepting people on our wait list. Depending on how big those wait lists are, we can add another tour so that way we can continue educating our customers before the public hearing. Another way is to just visit our website. Our website is really the hub of everything rates related. So our website, if you go to our homepage, YLWD.com, on our homepage there's a button right front and center. If you just click it, it says rate study. It'll direct you to our rate page. And that has the study that Christine talked about. It will also have some of the tour information that you've received today and the presentation that we just went over. It'll also have the virtual tour option, which is why we have Brian in the back recording, because we want to make this available to everybody in case they cannot join us in person. We also have a email that you can email us questions to related to the rates. Christine is the one that receives those because she is the finance officer, our manager, who knows all things rates related. You can also call us and stay engaged with us on social media. And it is now time to go on a tour. The first stop, like I said, we're going to visit our PFAS plant. We have a really great demonstration that we have set up for you that our wastewater team will show you. So that way you can see the invisible infrastructure that we don't see above ground. So we have that. And then we have a well located here on site that you'll be seeing. And then we'll load onto a bus, or not a bus, a van, that will be then traveling to the different stops. So again, please ask questions during the tour. We're happy that you're here. And thank you again for joining us.
We have 3 wells that are located by the river, and we have 7 wells that are located here on our headquarters proper. And through the water that's drawn from the wells out by the Santa Ana River goes through piping, and it's collectively brought here to our headquarters. That's one of the things that we considered. You see here our PFAS treatment plant and our vessels here. We went ahead to go with ion exchange as the option that we were going to use to draw the PFAS out. You heard me talk about PFAS. That's the problem. The raw water that we pull out of our wells is contaminated, not good for you. We actually have to draw PFAS out of the water. PFAS is used in fire manufacturing, fire treatment, or fire foam. You'll see PFAS is in the water. That water is in the Santa Ana River, in the water, and it has to be treated before it gets out. One of the things that Christine talked to you about is that our emergency fund. There was a point prior to 2021, before this plant was built, that we had to stop all our groundwater pumping because of that PFAS. And when we did that, we couldn't produce water locally, so we had to import all our water. And what I told you before is that imported water was much more expensive than the locally created groundwater, so we had to use that emergency fund to pay for it. So back in before 2021, we worked in partnership with the Orange County Water District to build this PFAS treatment plant. And cost millions of dollars, but we were able to have Orange County Water District to build this plant for us. And then we would share in the costs and the operations and maintenance for the PFAS treatment plant. All the vessels that you see here contain what's called this resin, which looks like this. And this resin is what actually draws the, as the water's pumped through the tanks, the PFAS adheres to the resin. So with that, I'll turn it over to Todd to kind of take you through the rest of it.
Okay, so yeah, you're at the heart of our treatment process right here. This is really it's already been blended. Now it's getting the PFAS removed through the ion exchange process. It goes through all these 11 trains. They could be all of them running at one time. We could have 5, depends on how much water we're making at the time. Right now, we're making a pretty decent amount of water. We have almost every single train on. And then they combine, so that would be called our combined effluent, which is just all those waters put together after it's been removed from the PFAS has been removed. And then at the end of the plant is where we add our first dose of chlorine. The water doesn't need to be disinfected. It's pure coming out of the ground, but we do need the chlorine to carry throughout the system in case there is any contaminant out there, biological, that keeps the chlorine residual going out through the distribution system, so the water quality stays good all the way to your taps. We go through that building right there. That's where the booster pump station is. So before these wells, you hear, well, that's another building, but that engine right there, that's a natural gas engine well. So that's powered that way. This one's powered electrically. So you can hear this plant kind of running. Well, those wells used to push up to that #1 reservoir, the Highland Reservoir I showed you guys. So that was fine until we built this plant, which caused some head pressure. It was difficult for the wells to actually get up the hill. So we have that booster pump station. It's got a series of 6 pumps that help move that water up the hill. So it's already gets chlorinated before that building. It goes through that building, gets pushed out, gets one more dose of chlorine, just kind of the polishing effect to get us to the residual that we want. And then after that, it travels up the hill and goes to that first reservoir. That's the end of our treatment process. After that, it's all distribution, sending it from one pump station to another reservoir, and so on, out forth. One thing I do want to add though, another part of our process is that we generate our own chlorine, which is actually gives us some resiliency. We don't have to import from a separate company to supply the chlorine for us. We bring in salt, we make a saltwater brine, electrify it essentially with the equipment that we have at our generation system, and that creates a very mild, what we would call bleach. It's sodium hypochlorite. That's what we use to disinfect our water with, and we make that on site. So that's an actual bonus. We have 3 units in there. We usually run 2. We have 1 as a backup. We rotate through them. So we're pretty much self-sufficient as far as that's concerned, and I like it that way.
Some of you might be wondering, well, like, what are the contaminant levels of the PFAS that we're talking about? So the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has said that our water can't exceed 4 parts per trillion. When you think about a part per trillion, think about a drop of water in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools, so very remote. But the raw water that's coming out of the Santa Ana River can be anywhere to 30 to 50 parts per trillion, and the EPA said that we can't exceed 4 parts per trillion to serve water to you. The water that comes actually out of our ion exchange has no detectable levels of PFAS in it. So you're drinking safe, clean, reliable water. The water, it goes through central piping here to our area. There's pre-filters, as you can imagine. Some of the raw water that you're pulling out of the Santa Ana River has a lot of particulates in it. So it goes through these 6 kind of pre-filters in the beginning before it actually goes through our main plant. Believe it or not, in Yorba Linda here is ion exchange. It's the largest PFAS treatment plant in the nation, in little Yorba Linda. So we make sure that people in Orange County don't build more than 22 vessels, because otherwise we won't be the largest anymore. But as Todd said, it doesn't have to go through the whole plant when you run the raw water. There's a lead and a lag facility, and all the treatment that it goes through before it gets to our first reservoir at Highland, you get clean water coming out of here.
With the camera system, we can take a look and find cracks in pipelines before they become bigger issues, before it becomes sewage on the street in your neighborhood. And that's what we're here for. We're here to protect the environment and to keep sewage in the pipeline where it belongs. Little robotic camera, we just back and forth in the pipeline, pan, tilt, zoom. There's monitors inside there so he can see everything that's going on inside the van. We're recording everything. The operators have been through 3-day certification programs so that they're coding every defect in a pipeline exactly the same way. All the recordings, all the observations that they make, those are all maintained in the database. And then that's how we dictate and decide where we do our work, what gets prioritized, and the order in which things get fixed. One of the most valuable tools that we have, we're on a 4-year video inspection cycle. Right? The more you see, the more you know about what's going on with your infrastructure. Some places, they're on like 7 or 8-year inspection cycles. So it feels really good to be ahead of the game in terms of our inspection cycle. So this is a simulation manhole. Obviously, this would be at the street level, right? These are those manhole covers that you see on the street. The operators come, they back up next to a manhole, they lower the robot down inside, and they begin their inspection. We can inspect up to 1,600 feet away from this van. It's really kind of wild to be in one neighborhood and have your robot in another neighborhood. But it gives us a lot of flexibility there. One of the nice things about sewer lines is that they're non-pressurized. and there's an airspace above them. Sewer lines are typically only 5 to 10% full, which means we can send robots, we can send cleaning equipment, and we can send other devices inside the pipeline too. This particular device inflates to then fill up the entire space of the pipe there. What we can do with that device is we can wrap a fiberglass patch around it. And when we find a crack inside of a pipeline like that, this would be from the outside, right? When we find a crack inside, we can install a fiberglass patch in there. And this is a full structural repair on this pipeline. This is a 50-year structural repair, and we can do this without digging up the street. Another shout out to our crews, because a lot of other agencies contract this work out. We do a lot of this work in-house. Our crews install up to 100 of these patches every year. So we're on the lookout to try and find small defects that we can effectively patch with this before they become bigger problems, which end up costing more money in the long run. What we do is we use high pressure water off of the truck that's supplied through the front hose reel. The high pressure water is sent to the cleaning nozzle up front there. The cleaning nozzle rotates and scours the inside of the pipe with high pressure water to remove roots, debris, grease, wipes, grit, whatever happens to be in there. It's really important to clean the pipe before we do video inspections so that we can get a full idea of the structural condition of the pipe. If the pipes aren't clean when we do our inspections, we're not going to see everything that we need to. These trucks, these are our first line of defense against sewer blockages, pipeline blockages. If there was ever a call about sewer coming up in your neighborhood in the street, this truck is going to be one of the first vehicles to roll out there and try and use the high pressure water to penetrate a hole through the blockage and restore flow inside of a pipeline. The other thing that it's doing is vacuuming. We don't vacuum all the time. A lot of times we just let it go down. But if there was sewage out in a street, we would vacuum and clean up all of that debris that's spilled out. It can do 1,001 different things, and every one of them comes in handy at some point. If you've been to the open houses, you see we have some fake poop. So, can you go back a little bit? And then throttle down. It goes kind of quick, so you gotta watch it because it's just light. So you would flush from your home. It goes down a lateral connection at your home into the sewer gravity main, and then away it goes. And that's how our wastewater collection system works.
We're a groundwater agency, right? And a groundwater producer. In order to produce water, from the groundwater and draw it out, you need wells, right? And so prior to my joining the district about 4 years ago, I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers. I was active duty for 35 years. And the Corps of Engineers actually operates all the dams along the Santa Ana River. Seven Oaks Dam that's up in San Bernardino was built by the Corps of Engineers in 1994. Prado Dam was built in 1941. And so I recognized that when they hired me, I said, hey, what I might be able to do to help this water district is unlock some of the grant funding so that you can build a well. Anybody have any idea how much it costs to build a groundwater well? How much it costs?
Few million?
Few million? Any other guess?
A lot more than that.
10 to 13 million dollars. Actually, more like 13 million was the last estimate, Reza, that we did. $13 million is a lot to build a groundwater well that's drilled down about 1,000 feet. Our wells operate anywhere from 300 to 500 feet, but it takes a lot to put it together. And so one of the things we're doing is trying to get grant funding through a vehicle of the Army Corps of Engineers. Federal funding is something that I've done prior to coming here. One of the critical things that you need in your funding, in order to get grant funding from the federal government, you need an authority and then you need an appropriation. So what I did is when we started here, I looked for, were there any other authorities that allowed us to build water infrastructure in this area? And sure enough, in 2007, one of your local representatives at the time, Gary Miller, put forward a congressional authority to build water infrastructure up to $10 million every fiscal year. So we leveraged that, because in order to get grant funding, you need the authority and then you need the appropriation. And so over this area that we're located right here, our representative, this well location sits in Representative Young Kim's congressional district. So I was able to talk to her about 2 years ago to leverage that authority, and using community project funding, which you might also know as in the earmark, we were able to design and plan the design and construction for this groundwater well. So 2 years ago, it costs about just over $1 million to design the well. We weren't able to get it that first year because, if you probably recall, the government operated on continuing resolution and didn't actually get an appropriation. We're looking at the energy and water appropriation. There are 12 appropriation bills every year for the federal government. The energy and water is the one we want. 2 years ago, we didn't get that appropriation. This year, they came through for us. And in January 23rd of 2026, President Trump signed the energy and water, and in that appropriation was an earmark for $1.1 million so that we could design this well. And this is the location of where that well is. You heard me talk earlier when we were in the van that we draw most percentage-wise of our water through these wells here. We have 3 out here. This would be a 4th. It's land, I think, that belongs to Orange County Water District, right? That we would have to lease from them. But they're really happy that we're building this well because, I mean, they share in the money to be able to use their aquifer to draw our well out of. So this is really exciting for us, all right? We can design it this year. It's a cost share where 75% of the will be federal government dollars, 25% will be the cost for the district. So take 1.1 million that we got federal government, we would actually have to pay 25%. That the 1.1 million would be 75%. We would have a 25% cost share, and that total would be design. That's the first increment this fiscal year. And then next year, I'm working on the cost for constructing, the drilling the well, which will be just north of $2 million. So we hope that we're going to be able to design and build this well over 4 years. And at the end of the day, we'll be able to have a new well. Some of our wells are really old, Freddie, and some wells have been put into operation in the 1950s.
1929.
Right? 1929. And if we didn't continually upgrade these wells, then we would have to rely more on imported water. And again, I reiterate that point, we have to do imported water. It's going to cost us and the residents more. Any questions at all on this? All right. All right, we can hop back in.
So you're standing on top of the reservoir right here, right now. This is underneath us is a 7.5 million gallon reservoir built in 1972. It's one of our oldest reservoirs. And we had a structural engineer come in and give us identify some issues that we needed to take care of. They dive in there, they have cameras, they videotape the whole area for us, and then they give us a report. Hey, you have some issues here. You probably want to address, the crack here. We can do this, and we get that report, and we do, we make a plan to do the maintenance. Some of that is cleaning. So they'll be down there with a vacuum, probably about this big. Well, it's about a little bit bigger than that. And they're going back and forth on the floor of the reservoir, cleaning the bottom of that reservoir. But they have pumps up on top, goes into a filter, and all that junk gets hauled away.
Thank you, Freddie. Yes, and last year we tasked one of our consultants to do a more thorough condition assessment and seismic analysis to make sure that the reservoir can keep up with, it's aging. We need to make sure that we can have it reliable for future use. So we emptied the base one at a time, if I'm not mistaken, sent the engineers inside. They did a detailed condition assessment, and they also studied the original design of the infrastructure. and they looked at the current codes, and they gave us some recommendations for short-term repairs, which was done last year, if I'm not mistaken, Freddie, and long-term repairs, which is essentially bringing the tank to the current code for seismic, which is planned for, I think, 3 years out from now. It's going to cost us 6 million almost. Yeah. We are going to do one at a time. We will take one bay out of service, and we will work on strengthening it seismically. And then when that's done, we will take the other bay out of service. We can't have the reservoir out of service, both bays out of service at the same time. So we need to do it in 2 years, one at a time.
Rozak, the inspection that the seismic engineer did on this reservoir, and he identified some improvements, were those improvements because of a deterioration of this, because of its age, or because changes in the criteria? So here's new criteria that we're evaluating this for.
That's correct. It's new criteria. There were some things that had to be fixed, and we've had divers go in and make some repairs. And we continue to have divers go in to just check on the status. But the structural improvements, it's because of code changes. And so this was built in 1972, and there have been several code changes since then because of Northridge earthquake and other things. And so we're not required to bring that up to code, but we feel it's important to do so, to have a very stable, large reservoir that serves all our customers, particularly since it's surrounded by homes. We don't want any problems with our reservoir, and we rely on this as source of water. So
We have the best views. I'll show you another view. It's much better than this one. We have the best views.
One of the things we haven't talked about on this tour is testing, because we've got this infrastructure and we're talking about upgrades and improvements of that, but we test all over this system every single day. When you go in here, there's actually a test station. A lot of it is done automated. It's done by computers and by sensors, and we monitor at the plant where we started. But the fact is, we can come in and draw water and test here as well. So it's just something else that's part of that infrastructure that makes sure that we're delivering high quality water to you, our customers.
Yeah, that's a great point. Here we have our on-site generation for chlorine, so we can make chlorine on-site and be able to treat it into the water system. And that chlorine residual gets checked every single day. There's someone here every single day. We also have backup power. It's powered by a diesel generator. So if we do lose power and we need to continue to pump water, we have the ability to have power and be able to continue to move water.
I think the important message is we don't wait for something to break before we go in, evaluate it, and make repairs or replace things. We are very proactive in our approach and how we address our infrastructure. And Christine had referred to the asset management program plan. And so what we do is that's a 100-year plan. Well, we get in there and we start just making sure that we're making the replacements and the repairs as we need to. And we have other planning documents that help us project for future growth. And so we make sure when we go in, we only have to fix it once. So maybe we upsize it, put more capacity. Maybe it's a fire flow concern. So maybe we update the capacity for that.
All right, we'll hop back on the buses, and then we're going to head to the next site, Santiago Booster Station.
When I was in the Army, there were a lot of things that kept me up at night. Now that I'm here, this is what keeps me up at night. Wildfire, especially this time of year, because as we talked about in the van, this will very quickly turn brown. You see out here, the 91 freeway runs there. Freddie talked about this being a historic fire corridor. So we had fires in 2008 and 2020 that did significant damage to this area, so we're very mindful of that. We've working really closely with the city of Yorba Linda to mitigate the wildfire threat by doing that advanced infrastructure, doing the helihydrants. So on our northern flank, the Santiago helihydrant, there's a Camino de Bryant helihydrant that if you go further east, and then the Metropolitan helihydrant that we did in partnership with them. I'll mention to you that the team was able to get a $500,000 grant from the U.S. Forest Service, Department of Agriculture, and it was a 1-to-1 match. So they gave us $500,000 in federal funds and we had to match it. So even when you're talking about $500,000, that's a lot for a water district to absorb. So we were able to get a subrecipient and bring in an additional partner. And so we built that at the Deemer plant. And with that, they actually built the helihydrant. If you look at the costs, I think this one was about $100,000. The other one in Camino de Bryant was about what, 450,000. The one over at Deemer they built in-house was north of 1.2 million. So, but with that third helihydrant, as Freddie talked about, it's all about response. And we're really proud of the relationship that we built with Orange County Fire Authority, because it's about responding quickly to fires. You can fill up the tanks. These different helicopters can fill in their tanks anywhere from 1,000 gallons for the Firehawks till about 3,000 gallons in the CH-47 Chinooks there, and they can respond very quickly to fires. They do training here, not only during the day, but at night. We'll get calls. Our public affairs will let people know when they're doing kind of training and doing the dips. But there are a lot of communities in Orange County now that are trying to build these helihydrants, or they also have these helipods that are more mobile that connect to a water source. So the water source that connects all these helihydrants is the same water that we provide to our service area. It's a benefit to the community to fight fires. What they like about the water that we provide there is they're able to operate with essentially a very clean system. If you have to go to a lake and drop the hoses down in the lake and pull up water, you get a lot of debris that usually gums up a lot of the helicopter systems for these helicopters they use. But great partnerships with Orange County Fire Authority, great partnerships with the city. A lot of residents, I don't know if it's affected you, your insurance rates, have they been affected by kind of wildfire? There are some cities that, they can't get insurance because they're on that urban wildland interface. So we talk about, if you go on our website, you can download a letter that we worked jointly with the City of Yorba Linda and Orange County Fire Authority to talk about the things that we've done to mitigate the threat. And our hope is that if your insurance company sees that letter, it will help you at least be able to maintain your rates or not have as higher rates as other cities. We have cameras up at all these sites so that we can monitor our traffic. We always see the 91 busy. Right now it looks like it's flowing pretty good. But one of the things that's, we're only 20 square miles, but because of the elevation changes, you can't get from the higher elevations over to like another, sort of like fingers in where you have to go up and then go back down to get to the different part of our service area.
So back in the yard, you saw a pipeline. You put stuff in the pipeline and then gravity takes it down, gravity does the rest. For some houses, gravity can't do all the work for us. In some cases, the topography of the land, the layout of the land says that the pipeline has to end here. Okay, fine. So wastewater from many of the homes on this street all come down to this point here, to this sewage lift station. From this point here, there's 2 submersible pumps that then pump the sewage back up to a location at the intersection of Greencrest and Sky Ridge, where the wastewater can then, by gravity, flow down a different portion of the hill and come down. Gravity is the most efficient means of conveying it. There's no energy involved in that, so we like to use gravity when we can. This is just one of those places where we have to have this lift station here. Yeah.
Like that's pretty much it. Any good questions? Did we mention the grant here?
Somebody climbed down there.
So we have had to go down in here, yes.
It's a confined space.
It's a confined.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a confined space. So all of our staff receive training every year on confined space entry. Really complicated procedure of having the right people, the right equipment, gas detection equipment, fall protection equipment. We want to make sure that everyone's safe in the process, but absolutely we send people down in here and deeper.
Yes.
Pretty nasty.
It is pretty nasty. Yeah. Coveralls, respirators,
All PPE.
safety glasses, gloves. Yeah. They also opt in for hepatitis B vaccination series as one of the job hazards of working with wastewater. So
Then you hose them off when they get out. If they need to be.
uniform service, leave it here. They take care of it. So always change clothes before you go home.
It's a dirty job.
Yeah, the wastewater infrastructure, super critical. You have a water leak. Nobody wants to waste water. That's important. You have a sewage leak. Now you've gone next level. Now you're threatening the environment, public health. This particular lift station, if this was to fail and sewage was to overflow at this point, it would go into that storm drain catch basin right there. It would go down on the backside of this hill, and it would exit down at the bottom of what they call Mud Canyon down there, and it would live down there. It would be very costly and very difficult to try and remove that.
Yeah.
We would have to make an effort to remediate that. We'd have to make an effort to remove that contaminated soil. That would be very challenging. So it's very important that this lift station functions 100% of the time.
You have to dig up this cul-de-sac?
So normally when the lift station is functioning, we don't have to do anything. We come weekly, we check the status of the pumps, the control room. Did you guys show them the control room?
We did. I think he's talking about construction. When you do construction.
Oh,
When you
yes.
renovate it.
Yes. So for construction, it's actually going to go where that circle is right behind Freddie. So they're going to excavate there in the street, and they will install a brand new composite manhole assembly here, wet well assembly, new pumps, new piping, new motors. It's going to have a brand new instrumentation and control panel here. And that'll be ready to serve us for 30, 40, 50 more years.
Thank you for joining us for our Behind the Bill virtual tour. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more, visit our website at www.ylwd.com/rate study.